21 is the day, December 21st, 2012. Can you imagine going out perhaps early in the morning on that date, looking up and seeing a large, fiery, tumbling thing headed straight at Earth? Can you imagine that? We'll ask why the Mayans picked that particular date in a moment. I've always baited myself about the end of the Mayan calendar, figuring a couple of Mayans were sitting around. One said to the other, "I've had it with this calendar crap. That's it." And that's when they stopped. They just got sick of making calendars. I don't know. But here we have a date, 21 December 2012, which could be the end of all, perhaps. Why that date? On what do you believe they might have based that? I'm going to ask how the Mayans might have known to pick that specific date, 21 December 2012. How did they know? We'll be right back. You believe all this is a recurring cycle of destruction, yes?
I think we have to be open to the possibility that it's a recurring cycle of destruction, because that's precisely what the ancient myths say, that there is some dark danger that visits the earth periodically over long periods of history. It may go away for thousands and thousands of years. It may be completely forgotten. It may be something that people never ever think about, but then, like a grim avenger, it comes back. It returns to strike us down again. And there seems to be some kind of cycle operating, which perhaps we don't fully understand. And I suppose the alarming prospect, and the one that should focus our minds and that we should consider seriously, is that this cyclical cataclysm spoken of in the ancient myths and in the traditions just might return in our own time. We should learn the lessons of history, that we should be aware that what struck our ancestors down may return to strike us again today. We could indeed be facing the return. All we have are the memories and the traditions and perhaps the warnings that have been passed down to us by ancient civilizations. And there's no doubt in my mind, very clearly ringing out like a bell, is a warning coming down to us from the past. And
do you think one of those warnings was issued by the Mayans?
Yes, I do. I think the Mayan calendar is extremely interesting in this respect. And the Mayan calendar does, of course, contain a prophecy which could be interpreted as a prophecy, literally, of the end of the world in our time, certainly of the end of civilization as we know it, and very specific dates. And the date the Maya put on it, translated into our calendar, is the 21st of December, 2012, as of course is very widely known. I think many people in the world today are aware of this ancient warning and slightly spooked by it, and rightly concerned by what it might mean. Now, it's not as simple as that. The Mayan calendar and the ideas that lie behind it are extremely complicated. The Maya were extraordinarily accurate and precise observers of the heavens. And that they had a very clear knowledge and understanding of time and the way that the passage of time affects the positions of the stars in the heavens, and in particular the positions of those stars lying in the background against the rising point of the sun on the horizon on particular days of the year. And what happens on 21 December 2012, and in fact, really, as John Major Jenkins points out, we're looking more at a window here rather than a very specific and exact moment, a window of about 40 years. Now, I think what's going on here is that the Maya are not saying that in itself causes the disaster. I think they're saying that is the marker by which we can recognize the return of the disaster. It's like a clock in the heavens, and their astronomy was so accurate that they were able to predict this event thousands and thousands of years ago.
Well, given that date and a 40-year window, our butts are just about hanging out that window now.
Our butts are right hanging out of that window now, and I do think that we need to take seriously what the Maya had to say, but that it also involves responsibly studying exactly what the Maya did have to say. And that is a very complicated message, not an extremely simple message that the world will just come to an end on that date. It's a bit more complicated than that. It certainly seems to be signaling the end of an age of the world, the end of an epoch. One thing I know for sure is that we would be unwise to ignore this warning and this message from the ancient Maya, a civilization that observed the heavens so accurately and so closely, a civilization that had inherited thousands of years of knowledge from stargazing ancestors such as the Olmecs who preceded the Maya, is a civilization that we should take seriously. And when they tell us that something traumatic and tumultuous is going to happen on the date in our calendar that we call 21 December 2012, I think at the very least we should listen to them. We shouldn't just dismiss it and ignore it. We should take it into account. And one possibility that occurs to me, we were talking before the break about the notion that the fragments of a comet that had struck the Earth before might be due to return in exactly this period. And perhaps the Maya used fortuitous events in the sky, which they were able to predict extremely accurately, to act as a marker or a signal for the return of this event, so that by looking at the sky we could know that this danger was returning to us. But there's something more in the Maya calendar than that, and indeed in all ancient traditions that speak of the destruction of a former civilization, and speak of the possibility that this destructive episode could return. And what all these traditions agree on is that humanity itself is in some way implicated in its own fate. I have to say, if there was ever a civilization that looks in mythological terms like a soon-to-be lost civilization, then that civilization is ours. Because just like Atlantis, we have, if you like, lost the mandate of heaven. We have become arrogant. We have become entirely and intensely materialistic. That there may be hope in this prophecy as well as fear, that there may be light in this prophecy as well as darkness, that somehow perhaps if we can transform our own consciousness, then even if a disaster does afflict the Earth, we will be better placed to deal with it in some way. So
do you believe, Graham, do you believe it's possible, certainly at the fringes of science, there's beginning to be a recognition of the possible power of consciousness?
Yes.
So do you believe that if we were in effect reborn and behaved entirely differently than we are now, that mass consciousness actually could avert the kind of catastrophic event, physical event that you've been talking about?
Avert it, or at least make its consequences less damaging, and perhaps avert it entirely. Yes, I do believe that. There's so much wisdom has come down to us from antiquity that sees mankind not simply as a little local issue here on this planet, but really as the focus of a kind of cosmic struggle between the forces of light and the forces of darkness, and that the decisions and actions of mankind may rebound far beyond ourselves out into the cosmos, that we may in fact be the fulcrum on which the entire cosmos pivots. And while that may sound very self-aggrandizing, it is the message of the ancient text. It is, for example, the message of the Gnostic text, the Nag Hammadi library that comes down to us from Egypt, that was found in 1945, documents that were written more than 2,000 years ago, see us as the focus and fulcrum of a cosmic struggle. And I think, again, we need only look into our own lives in the small scale to see how this might work on a much larger scale.